across continents, where he occupied several technical leadership positions. He holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Computer Systems, a Bachelor of Technology in Software Engineering, and a Master of Science in AI. His latest research is titled Vanishing Gradients in an Artificial Deep Neural Network: The Impact of Activation Functions and Optimization Techniques, and has been published in the International Journal of Computers and Communication and sparked engaging discussions in the industry, highlighting its potential to inspire others in the field. B.Eng spends much of his time engaged in community building activities in his local Baha'i community in the Greater Toronto area. We recently had the bounty of listening to B.Eng in Ontario, Canada, Ottawa, and I was so moved because this is a very touchy subject right now. So why don't we get right into it, and welcome, dear B.Eng.
You're muted, B.Eng.
Thank you very much, dear Aniela, for the introduction, and welcome to everyone. So I think I'll have to share my screen so that we can be able to start. I don't know if everyone can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Hey, forgive me, but I would like to know who's recording this.
Hi, I'm recording this for tonight.
Thank you, Roya.
Thank you. So today we'll be discussing about the topic of artificial intelligence and consciousness. From the last 4 years, artificial intelligence have been at the forefront of the discourse of society. Everyone have been asking some legitimate questions about AI in different capacities, whether AI will influence how they work, will influence the future of education, will restructure the workplace, will replace mankind in the workplace, or AI will eventually take over. So to be able to understand and have a more critical analysis on these classical and very legitimate questions, we will have to reanalyze the discourse of society with regard to AI and consciousness, so that we can gain enough understanding and how they correlate and bring more light on the questions we ask ourselves every day. So to achieve that, we have to go through different points. So we'll start by examining the concept of artificial intelligence, what it means, and what is AI made of. And then we'll try to establish a correlation between AI and consciousness using science, mostly psychology, as well as computer science. After that, we'll have establish a very strong conceptual framework, so we can start diving a little bit more deeper into what it means beyond material considerations. And then we'll bring back AI in the hierarchy of existence. Where does AI fit in the creation of the universe? And then we'll be more equipped to answer the question of whether it will take over or not. And we'll finish by introducing a more cohesive ethical framework for engineering AI, for deploying, using, and also governing it. And then we'll conclude by going through a series of questions. So let's start with the first topic. What is artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence is nothing else than a computer system that is designed to simulate the human intelligence and perform tasks such as learning, problem solving, and decision making. So AI, just like any other science, it has a beginning. It was introduced in the early 50s by a British mathematician called Alan Turing. He is very well known for being the first one to break the Nazi Enigma machine, which is an encoding machine used after the World War II by the German regime to be able to encode messages, especially within the context of their military endeavors. So the US and their British allies were very much interested in understanding what the Germans were working on in terms of nuclear programs so that they can understand how to manage them. So Alan Turing was the one who built a very sophisticated mathematical model to break and get all the information from the Nazi. So he is the person who was the first one to set the foundation of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is made of different components, mostly mathematics. So we use algebra for formulating how a machine can learn new information and make predictions. We also use calculus to optimize the learning process, because to train an AI model, we need billions of record of information, and it brings in a lot of complexity in terms of computation. And when a computation is very complex, it's also very costly. So we need a more efficient way of training AI models. So we use calculus to optimize that process. And to be able to make, to allow an AI model to make predictions, we use statistics and probability. And to implement everything so that a computer can understand and execute based on the implementations, then we use programming languages. Of course, we need very powerful computers, very powerful data centers to be able to run all of these processes. So another question is, how does an AI model learn? It learns through an artificial neural network, which is an AI learning model inspired by the human brain structure, featuring interconnected nodes called neurons, just like in a human brain, and they're organized into layers. So you can see on my left, we have the visual representation of an artificial neural network. So it's just a graph of mathematical functions that receive inputs, process it into layers, and then produce the output. And on the right, we have the actual mathematical representation, which is just a set of inputs that get processed through a linear equation and then produce the output. So this is another representation on how the real brain looks like, on how the artificial brain looks like. So the artificial brain is actually mimicking the real brain. For example, we can see on the biological brain, we have inputs such as soma, dendrite, and then we have the processing part of it, which is the myelin set, and we have the output, which is made of synapses. So we try to replicate the same models in artificial brain, where we have the inputs, which are just variables represented by x, 1, 2, n. These are the data sets, the data points that we are intending to use to train an AI model. And then we apply some weight to it, and then it goes through a process of transformation through that equation, which is nothing but a sum. And then we have an activation function, which is like a mathematical representation of synapses, which produce the output. So when you're using ChatGPT, it actually goes through this process for it to produce the output you see when you ask it to do something for you. So before going further, it's very important to set the context. So we'll try to have a little bit of insight on the discourse of society regarding AI and consciousness. So I'll play a video that will help to give us a little bit more of context before we can start exploring more concepts that establish the correlation between the two.
I guess one should think of artificial intelligence not as sort of this, a destination that you reach, but really as part of the overall escalation of intelligence that we are aware of. Human intelligence has also scaled as as the population has increased, and we've been able to store more and more information. Human intelligence has scaled. Now, because of population declines and low growth rate, human intelligence is somewhat plateauing and will actually decline. And my guess is that I think that we might have AI smarter than any single human at anything as soon as next year.
Wow.
Yeah. And then probably within 2030, probably AI is smarter than the sum of all humans.
We believe as an industry that in the next 1 year, the vast majority of programmers will be replaced by AI programmers. We also believe that within 1 year, you will have graduate level mathematicians that are at the tippy top of graduate math programs. So that's 1 year, okay? What happens in 2 years? Well, I've just told you about reasoning, and I've told you about programming, and I've told you about math. Programming plus math are the basis of sort of our whole digital world. So the evidence and the claims from the research groups in OpenAI and Anthropic and so forth is that they're now somewhere around 10 or 20% of the code that they're developing in their research programs is being generated by the computer. That's called recursive self-improvement is the technical term. So what happens when this thing starts to scale? Well, a lot. One way to say this is that within 3 to 5 years, we'll have what is called general intelligence, AGI, which can be defined as a system that is as smart as the smartest mathematician, physicist, artist, writer, thinker, politician. I call this, by the way, the San Francisco consensus, because everyone who believes this is in San Francisco. It may be the water. What happens when every single one of us has the equivalent of the smartest human on every problem in our pocket? But the reason I want to make the point here is that in the next year or two, this foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it. It gets much more interesting after that. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. We call that superintelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. The San Francisco consensus is this occurs within 6 years, just based on scaling. This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free.
Most of the leading researchers now believe that in not very long, we will be making these multimodal chatbots that are smarter than us. That, for example, if you have a debate about something, they'll win. And people vary, researchers vary on when that will happen. I'm moderately conservative. I think that'll probably happen in between 5 and 20 years, maybe between 10 and 20 years. I don't think it'll happen in the next couple of years. But quite a few people now think it'll happen in the next few years. When they get like that, we'll be in a situation we've never confronted before, when we're not the apex intelligence. We'll have created these digital beings that think in much the same way as we do, and that are a lot smarter than us, and we have no idea what's going to happen then. We do, and that are a lot smarter than us, and we have no idea what's going to happen then.
I guess what you think about.
So, in the contemporary discussion about AI and consciousness, as you could see in these videos, many scholars and technology executives are trying to frame their views within an implicitly materialistic outlook, treating measurable computations and observable behavior as the full extent of reality. But when you read this quotation from the Baha'i writings, this quotation cautions us against a narrow perspective that regards only what is sensed, empirically measured as real, dismissing what lies beyond the five senses as doubtful. Therefore, when we apply to AI, this specific mindset can lead to the assumption that sufficiently complex processing must eventually produce consciousness, implying simply because all the relevant mechanisms appear physically describable. Yet, if consciousness includes dimensions not reducible to sensory data or material interaction, then equating advanced computation with awareness reflects the limit of that specific framework, rather than defining a proof that shows that consciousness can emerge from complex computation. So some modern claims about machine consciousness may reveal more about the philosophical assumptions underlying technological culture than about the true nature of the mind itself. And this is very prevalent actually in the discourse of society. Most of the discourse has been dominated by this purely materialistic view of AI and consciousness.
Can we read that quote? Dear Baron, can we read that quote about that you just had up from the Baha'i writings?
Okay, so somehow my slideshow does not allow to go back.
Okay.
So I think we can read the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So what is consciousness? Consciousness generally refers to subjective experience. In other words, what it feels like. It can also be seen as self-awareness. It can be expressed as intentionality or raw sensation, which is also named qualia. To understand this relationship between AI and consciousness, we'll try to explore different theories from different scholars. The foundational modern discussion began with Alan Turing who's the founding father of AI, Alan proposed evaluating machine intelligence behaviorally rather than metaphysically. For example, in his paper published in 1950 called Machinery and Intelligence, he introduced what became known as the Turing test, suggesting that if a machine could convincingly imitate human conversation, then it could be considered as intelligence. So from this axiom, Turing reframed the debate away from can machines think towards a more observable performance. Yet his test measures and distinguishably inputs not the presence of subjective experience, therefore leaving open the question of whether successful imitation entails genuine consciousness. As you can see from this theory, he says that the new form of problem can be described in terms of a game, which we call the imitation game. So it's based on this philosophy that he built the theory of Turing test. So he was not alone in this endeavor, as artificial intelligence and consciousness are often discussed together, but they differ and they refer to fundamentally different phenomena. On one side, artificial intelligence describes computational systems that process information, detect patterns, and generate outputs based on learned statistical relationships. As we saw as part of the component making AI, we have a lot of statistics. Therefore, consciousness, by contrast, is more concerned about subjective experience, as we defined it earlier, the felt quality of awareness. So the philosopher Thomas Nagel famously wrote, an organism has conscious mental states if and only if there is something that it is like to be that organism. So he published, this was part of one of the publications he made in 1974. So this distinction highlights the central issue. AI may simulate intelligent behavior, but whether it has an inner point of view remains deeply contested based on the claims made by Thomas. A major critique of AI came from another philosopher called John Searle through his Chinese room argument. He published a paper in 1980 called In Mind, Brains, and Programs. He mentioned that syntax is not sufficient for semantics. Syntax is how we textually represent information, like using English alphabet or Arabic alphabet, or using programming languages like C#, Java, and so on. So that's semantic. So he's arguing that being able to represent something correctly in terms of sentence and structures does not automatically imply that that representation stem from a very deep understanding of that specific reality. He maintained that computers manipulate symbols according to formal rules, but they do not understand their meanings. So according to him, even if an AI system perfectly simulates understanding Chinese language, for example, it does not actually comprehend it. Just like a person following instructions to manipulate Chinese characters need not to know the language itself. So by just following instructions, we can draw Chinese characters. So this argument challenges the idea that computation alone can generate consciousness, as we'll see for other many philosophers claiming that. And the debates get intensified with the articulation of hard problems of consciousness by David Chalmers. In one of his publications called The Conscious Mind, he asked a very fundamental question. He asked, why should physical processing give rise to a richer inner life at all? From this statement, Chalmers is trying to distinguish between explaining cognitive functions. Cognitive function is what it qualifies as easy problems, and explaining why these functions are accompanied by subjective experience. AI systems today excel at solving many easy problems because every problem AI is able to solve right now is purely functional, such as perception, language modeling, decision-making, and so on. Yet, they offer no clear account of why or how subjective awareness will arise from computational process. And that subjective awareness is what they call the difficult problem. So AI can excel at easy problems according to the statement, but they cannot perform when it comes to hard problems. So based on this conception, then the possibility of AI generating consciousness from the complexity of computation becomes impossible. Some other contemporary theories attempt to bridge this gap. For example, the neuroscientist Guido Toroni, through the integration information theory, proposes that consciousness corresponds to the degree of integrated information within a system. This suggests that if an artificial system were sufficiently integrated and irreducible, it might possess some level of consciousness. Still, whether complex information processing is equivalent to lived experience remains unresolved based on this theory. Therefore, the ongoing AI and consciousness debate sits at the intersection of computer science, neuroscience, and philosophy, confronting one of the deepest questions in both science and human self-understanding, which is consciousness an emergent property of computation, or it requires something fundamentally beyond it? And then we have Daniel Dennett, who offers a sharply contrasting view to theories that treat consciousness as mysterious or non-physical. In 1991, he published an article called Consciousness Explained. And in that article, he argues that consciousness is not a special substance, but a collection of functional processes. By special substance, so he's trying to say that consciousness does not stem from a metaphysical reality. For those who are religious, they will understand that that's related to the soul. So AI cannot stem from the soul. It can come only from functional processes. It was called earlier on as easy problems. So for Dennett, what we call consciousness emerges from distributed cognitive activities such as perception, memory, attention, and language, operating together without the needs of an inner theater or an immaterial essence. Inner theater or immaterial essence could be interpreted as the soul. From this functionalist perspective, if an artificial system were to replicate the relevant organizational and functional patterns of the human mind, there would be no principled reason to deny its consciousness. As we saw in the introduction, the way we build artificial neural network, we are trying to reproduce the biological brain, but in a very functional way. So based on that reconstruction, the net is implying that consciousness could emerge from that orchestration of functional abilities that we implement artificially using math and statistics. Therefore, his account narrows the conceptual gap between AI and the human awareness, suggesting that consciousness may ultimately be understood not as something metaphysically unique, but a complex, emergent pattern of information processing. So from these arguments, from these philosophers, we can be able to categorize the differences between AI and consciousness using different dimensions. So if we have to consider the learning dimension, we clearly understand that AI systems are nothing but statistical optimization, while human consciousness is embodied and experiential. In terms of self-awareness, AI system awareness is simulated, while in human consciousness is the first person perceptive. In terms of emotions, AI can only perform pattern approximation. So when we build a robot and we say, oh, this robot is showing some emotions, is actually using statistics to approximate and reflect a certain pattern based on the data set that we use for training it, while for humans is the felt experience. In terms of the meaning, the meaning itself, AI systems derive meaning from data training, while humans derive from lived intentionality. And when considering the moral agency dimension, in AI systems is role-based or learned through training, while for human beings is reflective responsibility. So this conceptual framework have set the foundation now for us to explore what should be the real aspirations when we are trying to understand AI in the context of consciousness. So we need to go a little bit more beyond material considerations, because most of the assumptions that have been made so far, they fall within the category of what the Baha'i writings we read earlier on qualifies as materialistic philosopher, who measures or make whose judgment is based only on what they can see, they can feel, and they can touch. Anything beyond that, they claim that is inexistent. So we are trying now to bridge that gap so that we can have a more cohesive understanding of AI and consciousness. So this is a conceptual hierarchy. Consciousness causes intelligence and not the opposite. AI is trying to get to consciousness from intelligence. So it's like an anti-pattern. Consciousness is subjective awareness. It includes awareness of sensations such as pain, sound, color, awareness of thought, awareness of self, which is self-awareness, and experience of emotions. Intelligence is the ability to learn from data, recognize patterns, solve problems, adapt to new situations, and optimize solutions. And intellect is a refined form of intelligence focused on the abstract reasoning, logical analysis, conceptual thinking, and philosophical reflection. Therefore, consciousness enables awareness of thinking. Intelligence enables adaptive problem solving, and the intellect enables abstract and conceptual reasoning. So we have another quotation from the Baha'i writings. From this quotation, we are trying to understand what is the true source of knowledge, because in the video from Discourse Society we played earlier on, we are being told that true knowledge can come from machines. So let's try to see what the Baha'i writings tells us about this. This writing says that knowledge is one of the wondrous gifts of God. It is incumbent upon everyone to acquire it. Such art and material means as now manifest have been achieved by virtue of his knowledge and wisdom, which have been revealed in epistles, tablets through his most exalted pen, a pen out of whose treasury pearls of wisdom and utterance and the arts and crafts of the world are brought to light. So from this spiritual perspective, this specific quotation situates knowledge within sacred and transformative framework. As you can see, it states that knowledge is one of the wondrous gifts of God and is incumbent upon everyone to acquire it, emphasizing that scientific and material achievements arise through humanity's divinely bestowed capacity for understanding. Within this view, technological progress, including artificial intelligence, reflects the unfolding of human intellectual potential. Yet, it does not equate to consciousness itself. Rather, knowledge is portrayed as both a spiritual responsibility and a means of advancing civilization. This framing suggests that AI, as a product of human inquiry and creativity, is an expression of humanity's endowed intelligence, while consciousness remains tied to the deeper moral, spiritual, and reflective dimensions of the human beings, and no machine can reach that station. So now, still based on the Bahá'í writings, is very important to also understand that only humans can possess intellect, because without intellect, we cannot have intelligence. So if in the discourse society, everyone tends to claim that AI will be more intelligent than human, so we need to understand first, where does intelligence come from? So if we read this quotation from the Bahá'í writings, it says, "Praise and thanksgiving be unto the providence that out of all the realities in existence, he has chosen the reality of man and has honored it with intellect and wisdom, the two most luminous lights in either world. Through the agency of this great endowment, he has in every epoch cast on the mirror of the creation new and wonderful configurations. This supreme emblem of God stands first in the order of creation and first in rank, taking precedence over all created things. Witness to it is the holy tradition. Before all else, God created the mind. From the dawn of creation, it was made to be revealed in the temple of man." So this quotation further deepened the perceptive by affirming the unique station of human intellect and consciousness, as it highlights by saying that praise and thanksgiving to the providence and for the fact that out of all realities that have been created, only men have been chosen to be the custodian of intellect. Because AI is also part of the hierarchy of creation, we'll see where it belongs in the creation. And this quotation affirms that only men have been given that privilege. So in this view, intellect is not merely computational capacity, but a divine endowment that enables reflection, moral discernment, and creative transformation of reality. As we saw in holy tradition that was cited here, before all, God created the mind. It underscores the primacy of consciousness in the order of existence. Within this framework, AI may replicate aspects of reasoning or problem solving, yet the human mind is portrayed as possessing a transcendent origin and purpose that situate consciousness beyond purely material or algorithmic explanation. So in the following sections will now try to situate where AI is situated, where we can place AI in the order of existence, so we can understand whether AI could have access to this endowment from God or not. So it's also worthy to explore the source of mental capacity. Still from the Bahá'í writings, this quotation says, "Now concerning material faculties, they are in truth of the inherent properties of the soul, even as the radiation of light is the essential property of the sun. It is through the power of the soul that the mind comprehendeth, imagineth, and exerteth its influence, whilst the soul is the power that is free." So building further on this metaphysical account, these Baha'i writings explain that mental faculties are in truth of the inherent properties of the soul, even as the radiation of light is the essential property of the sun. In this analogy, the mind is not an independent mechanism, but an expression of a deeper, non-material reality. It continues by saying that it is through the power of the soul that the mind comprehended, imagined, and exerted its influence, while the soul is the power that is free. Such a view places consciousness within a spiritual ontology, suggesting that awareness, imagination, and volition arise from a dimension that transcends physical processes. And from these standing points, artificial intelligence systems may simulate cognitive functions, but they will lack the underlying soul that in this framework grounds genuine consciousness and freedom. So the absence of the soul in AI systems prevents it from attaining a level of consciousness, because that can arise only from the human experience, because the human is connected, has a soul that's connected to the divine. So with this in mind, let now try to situate AI in the order of existence, to try and understand where it fits and whether it has any possibility to connect to the higher level of existence, which brings consciousness, or it's prisoner of its own level of existence. So these are different levels we have of existence. We have the mineral, we have the vegetal, we have the animal, and we have the human. 4 levels in total. And each level has a specific power. For example, the mineral level, we have the power of transformation. For example, if we have carbon that have been subjected to pressure after a certain amount of years, that carbon will transform into diamond. The same way, if we have malachite undergoing certain pressures, it can get transformed into copper, for example. And there are many chemical experiments where if we bomb the kernel of the atom successfully, we can mutate from one specific material to another specific material. So that's the power of transformation in the mineral world. If we look at all the chemical reactions, they are nothing but the expression of that power of transformation. When we put together 2 basic chemicals and through the chemical reaction, they create a new composite mineral, is the power of transformation. So that's the only power that exists at that level, the mineral level. And then we have the vegetal level where we have the power of transformation plus the power of growth. And we have the animal level where we have the power of transformation, the power of growth, and then it introduces the senses. The animal can feel the cold, they can hear the sounds, they can taste. So these powers get introduced from the animal kingdom. And then we have the human level where we have all the powers below it plus the power of reason. So the power of reason, we don't find it in any other level of existence, but at the level of human, because the human has the soul, and that soul is connected to the divine. And it's through that divine inspiration that the human existence can have reason that can be reflected in everything the human do in terms of creativity, arts, and science, and so on. So as you can see, the only power that exists in the mineral world is the power of transformation and not the power of reason. So to support this schema, this quotation from the Baha'i writing says, as to the existence of spirit in the mineral, it is indubitable that minerals are endowed with a spirit and life according to the requirements of that stage, which is the spirit of the power of transformation. In the vegetal world, too, there is the power of growth, and that power of growth is the spirit. In the animal world, there is the sense of feeling, but in the human world, there is an all-embracing power. In all the preceding stages, the power of reason is absent. So reframed in the light of this passage, one might consider artificial intelligence as belonging ontologically to the mineral level, to the mineral world, because artificial intelligence systems are constructed from silicons, metals, and physical substrates that operate according to the material laws, which is the power of transformation. In the words of this Baha'i quotation, minerals possess a form of spirits and life according to the requirement of that stage. Yet they do not exhibit growth, sensation, or reason. The plants add the power of growth. The animals add feeling. And only the human world manifests the all-embracing power of rational consciousness. From this perspective, AI systems, however complex, they remain the extensions of the mineral world because that's where they belong. They are organized matters executing structured processes. These structured processes are the equations and the semantics of programming language and the syntax of programming languages we saw at the introduction. So their apparent intelligence arises from the arrangement and programming, not from an intrinsic rational faculty. Therefore, sophistication in computation will represent refinement within the mineral domain rather than a transition into the uniquely human capacity of self-awareness. So from this diagram now, we can see clearly that AI is a mineral reality. As you can see at the level 1, where we have the power of transformation, that's where we find all the components we use to build the AI infrastructure. We have the nickel, we have the silicon, we have the manganese, we have the cobalt, we have the titanium. So all of these, they help to build the infrastructure that powers AI. And on top of that, a level above, we have the vegetal, and then the animal, and then the human. And only the human is connected to the divine through the soul. That's why it has the capacity of reason. So the whole process of AI engineering can be summarized in one process: copying human reason into the mineral world. So I usually call it reason injection. So we are taking the reason, a copy of the reason from the human mind, and we inject it into the material, in the mineral realm, which is the silicon and the microprocessors and the memories running in the supercomputers. So there is no direct connection within the mineral world and the spiritual or the divine world. That makes impossible for any mineral system, such as AI systems, to attain consciousness, because there is no connection with the true source of consciousness, which is the soul. So how does this process of reason injection works? It all starts from the human mind. If you look at the level 4, stage 4, where we have the human mind is the link between the mineral world and the divine world. Through the human mind, the human being receives true knowledge through divine inspiration that's transmitted through the human soul and captured into the human mind. And through the human mind, get rationalized and expressed in a way that other humans could understand it. And once it's expressed, it gets stored somewhere. So this expression could be the creation of new musical compositions, could be a creation of new technologies, or creation of new theories, creation of new social engineering frameworks. So all of these, although the human mind needs to exert a certain level of effort, but the true source of any innate knowledge is from the divine inspiration, as we saw from the quotation from the Baha'i faith earlier on. And once that knowledge is received through the human mind, get formalized and stored somewhere. Could be on papers or digital copies somewhere in the data set. And then the process of engineering an AI system uses all the data generated by human minds as the source of truth. So all the AI system from stage 5, they get trained on the data set generated by the human mind to produce AI models on stage 6. And those AI models, they're able to predict outcome. For example, if you're in ChatGPT, you say, write for me a poem about justice. So the AI model will revisit billions of examples of poems about justice and create a synthesis, to try to create a synthesis based on those examples that have been in the data set generated by the human minds. And then on stage 7, it produces for you the outcome. So for you, it's something new. For you, it's something genuine, something unique, because you don't have access to all the examples that exist out there. And because of the processing power of the AI systems, which is inherent to the mineral world, the power of transformation, transforming information from one state to another one. You cannot perceive it that behind that there is a process of learning, there is a process of statistical analysis. You cannot perceive that because you don't have access to that. But the AI system has access to that. After combining those examples and deriving a new set of words that respond to your needs, it appears to be very intelligent. But if we trace back, the true source of intelligence is not the AI system itself, but is the data set that have been produced by the human mind, inspired by the soul, through which receive the divine inspiration that has true knowledge. So it's a very long process to go from the invisible world to the mineral world that is perceivable, that's visible to us. And then we have an emerging concept of artificial general intelligence. It refers to a hypothetical form of artificial intelligence that can understand, learn, and apply knowledge across the full range of intellectual tasks that a human can perform. Because there's some limitation with the classical artificial intelligence because it learns only from text. Anything that is not text, it cannot learn from it. So they said maybe to reach a more artificial general intelligence that will be more intelligent than the human and more conscious, we need to mimic how the human learns. Because the human does not learn only through text, the human learns also through senses, through smell, through taste, through touch, through hearing, through sight. So now the endeavor was about to equip AI systems with sensors that could smell, could taste, could feel the touch, could hear, could see, so that the learning experience of the machine could match the learning process of the humans. Therefore, some assumptions were made about artificial general intelligence. One of the major assumptions that was made is artificial general intelligence implies consciousness. Many AGI systems or many AGI narratives assume that if a system reaches or surpasses human level general intelligence, consciousness will naturally follow, just like the functionalist theory we saw earlier on. This view is often rooted in functionalism, the idea that if a system performs the same cognitive functions as humans, it must also share the mental state. As the philosopher Daniel Dennett argues that consciousness arises from functional organization rather than from a special substance like the soul. Under this assumption, sufficiently complex cognition means self-awareness. However, we have other critics such as John Searle, who challenges this, maintaining that computation alone does not generate understanding. So AGI discussions often assume that intelligence and consciousness are equivalent. Complexity yields awareness. Behavior proves inner life. Mind is substrate independent. Self-modeling equals self-hold. Self-consciousness is natively computational. So what have been missing in the discourse of society we saw so far is the fact that even AGIs remain trapped because it can only copy the limitation of the mind. It does not have access to the soul. Among all the components of the human existence, the only reality that is free is the soul. Everything else is limited. Even the mind is limited because the mind depends on the soul to get inspiration in terms of true knowledge. So from these Baha'i writings, we can read that the mind comprehended the abstract by the aids of the concrete, but the soul had limitless manifestations of its own. The mind is circumscribed, the soul is limitless. It is by the aid of such senses, such as the sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch, that the mind comprehended, whereas the soul is free from all agencies. So these are the senses that many scientists are trying to integrate in AI to reach AGI. So the quotation continues by saying that the soul, as thou observe it, whether it be in sleep or waking, is in motion and ever active. Possibly it may, whilst in a dream, unravel an intricate problem incapable of solution in the working state. The mind, moreover, understandeth not what the senses have ceased to function. And in the embryonic stage and in early infancy, the reasoning power is totally absent, whereas the soul is ever endowed with full strength. Expanding further on this quotation, it distinguishes sharply between mind and soul, asserting that the mind comprehended the abstract by the aids of the concrete, but the soul had limitless manifestation of its own. So this quotation describes the mind as circumscribed and dependent upon the senses, whereas the soul is free from all agencies and remains active in sleep, sometimes resolving problems beyond the mind's awakening, the mind's working capacity. And we saw this with many scholars like Nikola Tesla when he invented an electrical model for alternate current. He said that he didn't research about it. He felt that some knowledge came from above and entered his mind. He was just a channel to express it. So and there are many examples like that in the scientific world. So while the reasoning faculty develops gradually and may be absent in early infancy, the soul is portrayed as continuously endowed with full strength. Viewed through this lens, artificial intelligence entirely depends on physical input, sensors, and computation structures. So will correspond to the circumscribed operations of mind at most. So it's copying only the limitation of the mind and not limitless independent reality attributed to the soul. AI processes information through material channels, but it does not possess an inner or self-subsisting source of awareness that may transcend those channels. So if we have to express the fundamental relationship between AI and consciousness, we can start with a very basic formulation where we say artificial intelligence equals human intelligence minus consciousness, which means consciousness is the key differentiator between artificial intelligence and the human intelligence. So with this basic formulation, AI and consciousness are mutually exclusive. Human intelligence and consciousness are not measurable on the same scale. So because of that, then this arithmetic equation may not be computationally feasible. Then we could find another way of expressing this. We could use the functional way of referring. We could say human intelligence equals a function of artificial intelligence and consciousness. So with this expression, we could conclude that when we have high, mathematically speaking, when we have high artificial intelligence and low consciousness, we have a tool. That's why I always argue that AI will remain a tool to the service of humankind instead of being a tool that will replace humankind because of that low consciousness mathematically, but in reality, it's zero consciousness. So low artificial intelligence, this is a supposition. Low artificial intelligence and high consciousness will give rise to a more capable agent. So if that was possible, then the transhumanism is the process of replacing humans by machine. Then the transhumanism will be possible because if we have high AI plus high consciousness, then we will have more capable AI agents with moral agency that could make decisions and will have self-awareness just like humans. So because that is not possible, then transhumanism could never be possible as well, although many tech executives are trying to push for that. So mathematically, this equation is an identity that defines AI by subtraction. And conceptually, it's saying we have built intelligence without what it feels like to be, which means we built intelligence, which is purely functional and not conscious at all. So we could go a little bit more further, trying to express this relationship using a more asymptotic behavior. I think that is more appropriate, especially if you want to visualize how the human intelligence is evolving and how the artificial intelligence is evolving. We can even go further using complex numbers because consciousness is not a quantity that we could measure using real numbers. So introducing complex numbers could also help in better representing these quantities. So in this graph, we can see that the relationship between artificial intelligence and human intelligence is asymptotic by nature. It means no matter how artificial intelligence evolves in complexity, mimicking accurately the human intelligence, it will never reach the same magnitude as human intelligence because of the gap between the two in red, that's consciousness. So this relationship in mathematics is usually called asymptotic behavior between the two functions. Although artificial intelligence is being put above human intelligence just for representation, but in reality, in terms of magnitude, artificial intelligence is always below human intelligence. So now we we have set both the conceptual foundation, and then we went a little bit deeper into the spiritual understanding of that relationship. Now we are more positioned now to explore the question of whether AI will take over or not. So let's hear from the Scholars of Society what is being said about the possibility of AI taking over.
In between 5 and 20 years from now, there's a probability of about a half that we'll have to confront the problem of them trying to take over. I don't think China and the US will collaborate on things like detecting fake videos or thwarting cyber attacks, because their interests aren't aligned there. People only collaborate when their interests are aligned. And on that, their interests are opposed and they will not collaborate. But they will collaborate on how do you prevent AI from taking over, because there their interests are aligned. In much the same way as the Soviet Union and the United States, their interests were aligned in the 1950s in preventing a global nuclear war. It wasn't good for either of them. And so they did actually collaborate in ways to prevent that.
You know, we've heard from so many people, leaders in the tech field, who say, well, look, if the U.S. doesn't win this war, this battle for dominance in the AI world, you know, a rogue nation, a country that's an enemy of the United States, China, Russia, they're going to have AI. If China is not developing AI that has maternal instincts and the U.S. is the only one who has maternal instincts, does that not make them... I mean, is that not making them weaker in this war for dominance?
Well, there are many risks of AI, like cyber attacks and loss of jobs and making nasty viruses. But one of the risks is this existential threat that AI will take over. And for that threat, all the countries will collaborate because they're all in the same boat. No country wants AI to take over. Just as the USSR and the Americans collaborated at the height of the Cold War, countries will collaborate on how to prevent AI from taking over from people. In between 5 and 20.
So this is an allocation from Professor Heaton. He's a professor of computer science here at University of Toronto. He is considered as the godfather of AI. 2 years ago, he received a Nobel Prize in AI. So he always advocates that there is a possibility of AI taking over. And the only way to stop that is different protagonists like US, China, and so on to start collaborating on these programs. So he is still making an assumption that there is a certain level of awareness, a certain level of consciousness that will arise from AI. So from the standpoint that consciousness is the ground of genuine agency, it will be impossible for AI to truly take over because it lacks self-awareness and intentionality and also intrinsic will. Artificial intelligence systems execute algorithms, optimize objectives, generate output based on training data, but they do not possess an inner point of view. They do not possess moral comprehension. They do not possess independent purpose. As the philosopher John Searle argued, syntax is not sufficient for semantics. So manipulating symbols according to rules, because that's what AI does, it does not amount to understanding or conscious intent. So without subjective awareness, AI cannot originate goals in the way conscious being can. It can only pursue objectives assigned or emergently shaped within parameters set by human designers. Therefore, while AI may influence systems at scale or automate complex decisions, the absence of consciousness means it remains an instrument of human agency rather than an autonomous rival capable of self-determined domination, as presented by Professor Hayton. So the real threat is not in AI, because as we saw, it lacks self-awareness. The real threat is in the lack of spirituality from the side of those who are developing, deploying, and managing AI. Because there is a certain level of intent behind the development of this technology. Most of the time, the intent is not really to unify mankind, is not to advance the human civilization. It's usually most of these developments come from the thirst for control and domination. So we can compare it with the atomic bomb. But the atomic bomb were not created because these countries wanted to make the world a better place. They wanted to be the one dominating others, the one subjecting others, the one imposing their will above the will of others. So for them to achieve that, they need to be military powerful. And the atomic bomb was used to achieve those specific objectives. Was the atomic bomb aware of itself and carried itself and dropped itself in Japan? No, we needed human agency. It's the same thing with AI. It requires human agency for it to perform any specific task, whether it's destructive or constructive. So to elaborate further, let's try to understand why AI will never take over, because it lacks formal knowledge. So this is again from the Bahá'í writings. It says knowledge is of two kinds: existential knowledge and formal knowledge. That is intuitive knowledge and conceptual knowledge. The knowledge that people generally have of things consists in conceptualization and observation. That is, either the object is conceived through the rational faculty or through its observation, a form is produced in the mirror of the heart. The scope of this knowledge is quite limited, as it's conditioned upon acquisition and attainment. So elaborating further on this Bahá'í writings distinguishes between existential knowledge, which is intuitive knowledge, and formal knowledge, which is conceptual knowledge. It explained that most human knowing consists of conceptualization and observation, either grasped through rational abstraction or formed through sensory experience, and that such knowledge is limited because it depends upon acquisition and attainment. So within this framework, artificial intelligence operates entirely within the domain of formal knowledge or conceptual knowledge. It processes representations, patterns, and abstractions derived from data, but it does not possess existential or intuitive awareness. AI can model, classify, predict, yet does not it does not be in the way a conscious subject does. This distinction reinforces the idea that computational systems may expand the scope of conceptual knowledge while remaining fundamentally outside the deeper experiential mode of knowing attributed to the human soul only. So this is the first limitation that will make impossible for AI to take over. So continue on that same subject, the Baha'i writing says that the other kind of knowledge, however, which is existential or intuitive knowledge, is like man's knowledge and awareness of his own self. This is an existential knowledge through which man realizes his own condition. He both senses and comprehends it. For the spirit encompasses the body and is aware of its sensation and powers. This knowledge is not the result of effort and acquisition. It is an existential matter. It is pure bounty. So this quotation describes existential or intuitive knowledge as the direct self-awareness through which a person immediately knows and experiences their own state. A knowledge that is not acquired through effort or through training like we do with AI, but is intrinsic and ever present. Because the spirit encompasses the body and is aware of the sensation and powers. Human consciousness includes an inward an inward self-luminous dimension that grounds intention, responsibility, and volition. And we don't have intention, responsibility, and volition in AI systems because it lacks existential knowledge. Artificial intelligence, by contrast, they lack this specific existential self-awareness. It can process representation of data, building data about its own operations, but it does not inwardly experience or comprehend itself. Precisely because AI is confined within the mineral world. It's confined, is limited by its ability of symbolic processing without intrinsic self-presence. It cannot originate authentic will or independent purpose. For this reason, despite its growing technical power, as we saw in the last equation, the asymptotic behavior, how AI is growing, AI will remain an instrument shaped and directed by conscious agents rather than a self-determining force capable of truly taking over. So it will be good now to explore a framework, a very cohesive framework that can guide the engineering, the usage, and the governance of AI. This framework begins with an ontological clarity, according to which intelligence, however advanced, is not conscious and does not possess moral agency. Intelligence as computation must not be confused with subjective awareness. So let's try to explore a little bit more deeper this framework. And before that, let's try to have an idea on the problem we are facing right now, because we don't have any framework that is cohesive enough, any framework that is in sync with the aspiration of mankind, any framework that is intending to build a divine civilization. So let's explore some of the problems that we are facing right now, so you can see where does this framework fit in. So the first one has to do with the pollution as a result of new AI data centers that have been built across US and Canada.
I'm going to call 911 right now.
You guys complain. You complain.
I'm Senior Vice President of Corporate Development for CoreSite. CoreSite is a co-location data center developer and operator.
It is so great to have data center executives here today, since they seem to skip out on town halls where the community that they're going to be poisoning is attending. So we had to come to your conference today.
Can I interrupt for just a second? I respect you. I respect you.
And let them know
I respect
that they
you,
need
and
to talk to
I
the
respect your
communities
time.
that they are going to be devastating.
And I'm happy
with
to
their
give you a
buildings.
designation.
Your DE3 data center would give people asthma, cancer, and heart disease in what is already one of the most polluted communities in the United States.
These executives are absolutely disgusting. All they care about is profit, while the world is going to burn. Future generations are going to suffer.
I'm going to call 911 right now.
I bet you every one of them has a phone in their pocket.
Every single one of them. DE3 much dirty energy and over 60,000 homes.
Data centers kill! Communities pay the bill! Data centers kill! Communities pay the bill!
Look, guys, I understand you have a beef with it, but this is not how you do it.
You don't belong here. Why? I paid to be here. I think I belong to be here.
If you are a disruptor, we don't want you at the conference. You can get a refund. Give me a call.
I can get a refund?
Why are you putting me in a chokehold? This is the future you want to see.
Drop Project Nimbus! Drop Project Nimbus!
You are making Project Nimbus a project of billions of dollars that Amazon is investing so that Israel has free access to your servers. You are investing billions in that. Your technology, Project Nimbus, develops Lavender, develops the software Where's Daddy that actively tracks, using AI, people in Palestine, and when they come back, they kill them together with their families. And you know this. You know this, Werner Vogels, and you're making millions out of this. You're sitting here as if you're trying to do good, as if you're trying to be for the good of AI. What do you have to say for yourself? How do you sleep at night? Maybe that's why you're looking so panicked. Maybe that's why you cannot even stand on this stage anymore and look at these people. Because you know exactly what your technology is being used for. They know exactly where their profits are coming from. And they continue anyways. You should be stopping them. You should be stopping those criminals right here. Why you facilitate genocide? Why you're continuing to be complicit in the deaths of innocent people? 3 years on.
Drop Project Nimbus! Drop Project Nimbus!
When Amazon employees say something against Project Nimbus, you fire them. That's what you do. You fire the employees. Stop! Why are you putting me in a chokehold? This is the future you want to see. This is the future you want to see, where AI executives can pretend like they have the answers, and they are doing good, and you're giving them a stage. Shame on you, Amazon! Drop Project Nimbus!
We don't know exactly how these models were used. What you're talking about is a use case that doesn't even violate our red lines.
That is the CEO of Anthropic, an AI company, when asked about the use of his product when the US bombed an elementary school in Iran. 73 boys, 47 girls aged 6 to 13, and 26 teachers. That's who the US military killed in that bombing. 73 boys, 47 girls, and 26 teachers. We are in an age where the war criminals don't just live at the White House or sit in Congress. They are heads of some of the most powerful companies in the world. Now, while this quote is wild to say out loud, it's not an uncommon sentiment from people like him, people who profit off war, whether it be the CEO of Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, or these tech companies that are actively ingraining themselves in the military-industrial complex. They profit from death and then publicly justify the murder of children and their teachers. A father whose daughter was killed in the Ntambwe school bombing said, "Once my daughter's school bag was full of colored pencils and books, and now all I have is a burnt bag in my hands." If causing that much grief to at least 120 families isn't a red line, if bombing a school while kids are in class isn't a red line to these people, then what is?
We don't know exactly how these models were used. What you're talking about is a use case that doesn't even violate our red line. Is a use case that doesn't even violate our red line. Is a use case that doesn't even violate our red line.
So these are some of the realities we.
I'm going to call 911 right now.
You guys come. These are some of the realities we currently have on the ground, and they show the discrepancy between the engineering and the usage of AI and the aspiration of mankind. So it's very clear that mankind is trying to align more and more with values that protect the human race, while those developing those technology have a completely different agenda. Like we can see in this case where AI was used to target people in Palestine and get shot. When AI was used to bomb a school in Iran, the majority of people are not aligned with that. And also, we saw how data centers are polluting the environment in many parts of the world. And we can see that the majority of people are not happy about that. So why is the situation as it is right now? So from this message from the Universal House of Justice, it was from the 28th of November 2023, it says, a plethora of distracting forces and events, including environmental degradation, unbridled technology, war and genocide, have left their traces in blood and anguish on the pages of history and the lives of billions. So in this message, the House was trying to elaborate on the list of destructive forces that are operating right now in parallel with the constructing forces that the Baha'i community have been setting in motion for a while. And among those forces that's brought forth by the House of Justice, we have unbridled technology. Unbridled technology is the technology that is not yet controlled, does not have any moral framework that can guide its development and usage. And we can see the consequences. The consequences of that is war, genocide, and anguish that have been affecting billions of people around the world. So one of the root causes, in another message from the House of Justice from the 19th of March 2025, the House says, individuals are tempted to surrender to a life of material distractions or personal gratification, thereby becoming mere objects to be manipulated by those who seek to impose their designs on the society. And we can see already the pattern of these designs that have been imposed on the society through the wars that we have in Africa. It's all about controlling mineral resources, manipulating those who are in charge because they're distracted materially, they want positions, they want material wealth. And then through that, they devastate thousands or millions of people. So it's clear that the intention is about imposing a certain design. That design is a design of political domination, is a design of supremacy, is a design of economic exploitation, and so on. So most of these events going around in relation to AI and its applications in the human society, we haven't seen anything yet that is aligning with the moral aspiration of the society, because everyone seems to be not happy about how AI is being used at large scale. So as a part of framework that's suggesting, the first one is the ontological clarity principle, where we need to distinguish intelligence from consciousness. AI perform computations and pattern recognition. Consciousness involves subjective awareness and moral agency. Ethical confusion arises when functional capacity is mistaken for inner experience. As an implication, we should not attribute moral status or personhood to AI systems, as many tech executives are trying to suggest right now. The second principle is the one of human primacy. Human beings possess unique spiritual reality and moral agency. Human consciousness is linked to the soul. AI systems are tools, extension of the human capability. As an implication, AI must always remain subordinate to human moral judgment. This is very important because of the transhumanism that has been going on, trying to replace as many humans as possible by machines, by AI machines, trying to introduce the concept of universal minimum income so that people don't have to work. Machine will be doing everything. And from the income produced by the machines, then we'll distribute it equally across the globe so that people don't have to work. So that has severe spiritual implication because work is worship. So if humans are deprived from working, then how could that spiritual expression be part of society? So I think reinforcing the principle of human primacy is very vital as these agendas have been pushed forward. The third principle is the stewardship principle. Humans are morally responsible for AI outcome. AI does not bear accountability, individuals, community, and institutions. The three protagonists of social change should have that accountability. As an implication, responsibility cannot be delegated to algorithms because what AI is doing is executing mathematical algorithms and nothing else. And the fourth is justice and equity principle. AI might advance fairness and protect human dignity, prevent algorithmic bias. There have been many cases of algorithmic bias in AI where in the justice system, people of African descent have a higher probability of being incarcerated for very long than other ethnic group because the bias of the society or the prejudice and everything that is toxic have been fed into the AI systems. And when the AI system has started making decisions on behalf of the judges and other law enforcement authorities, it's just replicating the disease of the society we're living in. And we need to ensure equitable access and representation, avoid reinforcing structural injustice. We saw that a lot during the layoff. For the last 2 years, there have been a lot of layoffs in the tech world. And when you look at the statistics, the most affected in those layoffs are Black women. Black women are disproportionately affected than any other demographic groups. So if AI is being used to make such decision, then it's not advancing the oneness of mankind because it keeps on reinforcing the structural injustice that exists already. As an implication, ethics must be built into data, the models and governance. So before deploying an AI system, we need to go through a process of data sanitation to make sure that all the assumptions and diseases of the society we are living in are not transmitted into the data that AI will use to make decisions on behalf of human beings. The fifth principle is the one of transparency and epistemic humility. According to this principle, knowledge limits of both AI and human understanding. So we should avoid exaggerated claims about AGI or machine consciousness. We should make systems interpretable and auditable, because right now, for the sake of funding, many tech executives are tending to exaggerate what AI can do just to attract more investors. But when you look at the fundamental reality, AI is not capable of doing what they are claiming AI will do. So ending up misleading the masses, because many people still believe on what they hear in the social media because they don't have the right knowledge to evaluate whatever they are saying is true or not. So as an implication, ethical AI requires intellectual humility. The sixth principle is of social and spiritual advancement. Technology should uplift civilization, not diminish it. It should support education, health, justice, and unity. Should avoid uses that fragment society and erode human agency. We saw in the video we played, there have been many evidences from the UN experts proving that AI have been consistently used in the Middle East to bomb and kill innocent people. So that cannot be a proper usage of AI if we have to uplift this principle of spiritual advancement, social and spiritual advancement. As an implication, AI should serve humanity's moral and spiritual progress and not the opposite. So that was the last principle we had to explore, and we'll go to the conclusion, and after the conclusion, we'll go to the questions. As a conclusion, we can say that AI is computational, consciousness is experiential, simulation is not self-awareness, because that's the claim have been made for very long now. Human consciousness includes existential knowledge. AI belongs to the mineral world, which lacks in the discourse of society right now. Lack of intrinsic will prevents AI from taking over, and AI reflects human intellect and not its replacement. So with these slides, we conclude the presentation, and we can go to the questions.
God bless you. This was just brilliant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A comment that I have is that, so sentience is not possible, as it has been implied, because AI is only imitating sentience, and as sentience and it equals consciousness. And that only the soul has the capacity to reason ethics. And one thing that occurred to me is that, yeah, it's the bad actors there, and it's not having any guardrails. And it is like an atomic bomb, which I can, push depending upon my ethics. But, one thing that's so interesting about human consciousness is that the soul has dimensions of perception and understanding that are so mysterious. We have to avoid the impulse of measuring everything to somehow assume that if it can't be seen, that there's no proof that nothing has happened, whereas AI wants to give an answer immediately. There's not this quiet moment of reflection. of acting, of trying out the whatever it is I want to do, and then reflecting on how it worked. So I guess to sum up what I'm hearing is that everything that a human being can make can be used for good or bad, right? The other thing is that if this tool can allow us 3 to 4 hours of work, as is implied in the Baha'i writings, and the rest in service to the health of humanity and to building the oneness of humanity, then my question is this: should we get on board and really learn it? and I'm old. Can I learn it?
And Yella, I'd like to also, for people that have questions, be mindful there are 51 participants in here. Please be kind of concise and respectful of that. And I'm going to call the people as I see their hands appear on the list. So, B.Eng, if you would like to answer Anyella's question, the first person after this is answered will be James.
Thank you. Yeah, so although in this presentation we highlight mostly negative aspect because that's the problem we're trying to explore. But AI is affecting the human society in a very positive way because it's changing how we work, it's changing how we think, and it's changing how we live. And these transformations will be very profound in the coming years. Just like with any revolution, we had the Industrial Revolution. It affected the society in a specific way, and we're still living with the positive consequences of the Industrial Revolution. Although the first implementation was within this agricultural sector where everything has to be mechanized, but it gave rise to many discoveries that's expanded in many areas like transportation. Now we are driving cars, we are flying with airplanes. Those are the ripple effects of the Industrial Revolution. And then we had the information revolution, which is the second revolution, through the introduction of personal computers, as well as the internet. It has its own shortcoming, but when you compare with the benefits are higher than the shortcomings. And any business that has to survive those areas had to learn how to use these new tools. Like, we cannot conceive a business running without using a computer these days. So we had to adjust. So it's exactly the same thing that is happening with AI. AI improved how we work. Many repetitive tasks that we used to take days to try and achieve, now we can do it in a few hours. Therefore, we have more time to focus on more important tasks. And anything that is repetitive can be handled by AI. So the future is everyone should adjust to using AI in whatever capacity they can. Because I've heard a lot of rhetoric according to which AI will replace people in jobs. No, AI won't take anybody's job. But people who learn how to use AI will take your job if you don't know how to use AI. Because using AI will be like using Microsoft Excel, using Microsoft Word, using Outlook. So you cannot function in a formal sector if you don't have basic understanding on how to use these basic tools. So AI will be part of those tools we need to master, we need to understand at the limit of our ability, so that you can use them in achieving what we worked on a regular basis.
Okay, so if you cannot raise your virtual hand, I'll look for your hands raised. But Brother James, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you. And B.Eng, thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. The first one that I've attended on AI, and I've been using AI. I just finished a book. employing the skills of AI. And of course, I totally agree with your concluding principles. And just consider me ignorant, all right? I defer to you, but I do have some questions. Not concerning the architecture, the design of AI. I know nothing about that. But it's concerning the purpose of AI, ultimately, your analysis of the mind, consciousness, and intellect. And because in using AI, Opus 4 point whatever it is, a lot of questions emerge. You know you're taking philosophical positions on the reality of the intellect and consciousness, and therefore the mind. Had you considered the intellect as being a separate entity that the Master said was gifted to us, just like consciousness, being pre-existent, and we are emerging into it. It's reality. So again, this is philosophical, but I would like your opinions on that. It does not originate from within us, pre-existent, because we're not the first intelligent species in the universe. I got to be concise, like Gary said. So, I mean, I want to kick the can with you. Okay.
Thank you, dear James. Yes, so the statement you made is accurate. Consciousness is pre-existence because, as we saw from the writings of the master, is linked to the soul. So the soul does not have a beginning, does not have an end. During the conception, the body comes from the physical world and the soul comes from the spiritual world. They unite and create the human reality. And the death, they separate. One goes back to the dust and one goes back to the spiritual realm. So consciousness is pre-existence, but as human being, we don't have that ability to reflect that level of consciousness to the fullest extent as possible. Therefore, we find ourselves on a spiritual continuum where, through the guidance of the manifestation of God, we are trying to learn how to release that power of consciousness to a greater extent every day, a day after day. So it's a process. Reaching high consciousness is a process. The only difference between us, human, and machine is the fact that we are born already with a very decent dose of consciousness, although it's not is not adequate for us to be fully conscious human being. We need to make effort to acquire more. But machines have zero consciousness from inception, and they don't have any ability of the soul to develop those spiritual qualities that will allow them to reach high level of consciousness. So for us, it's a journey, but for the machines, there is not even a path to that journey.
Thank you. And Roya is going to read a question from the chat.
Yes. Oh, in the chat, Jewel says, I can adjust, but want first to know how the environmental and other detrimental impacts are being actively addressed. Please comment.
Yeah, so this is a very challenging situation we are in right now. So we have AI that is empowering the human existence in positive ways, and also is being used in a negative way. And we have seen some very detrimental effects of certain approaches that have been taken. For example, the building of data centers that are affecting the health, the public health of the communities. So now, as a human being, how do we draw the line between whether I should choose to use it as a conscious being, although the infrastructure powering the tool I'm using for a good cause is devastating communities. So that's a very, very tricky situation to be in. And based on my point of view, I will say these environmental issues have been highlighted already. And although they haven't been addressed yet, but I'm sure as time goes, there will be more and more social pressure, and most of these requirements will be met. So I think it will be good to still use the tool for a good cause while advocating for more robust road rails for its implementation and usage. In that way, we capitalize on these tools that are the fruits of the human gifts of imagination and intellect. Instead of sabotaging it because some of the requirements have been missed, we adopt it and we keep on encouraging organizations and all the protagonists, the institution, the communities, and us as individuals to keep on progressing toward a more ethical usage. In that way, will not obstruct the unfoldment of the human civilization, will allow it to happen, but making sure that it's happening in the right way and not in a context that is powered only for material gain. So I think we have the moral responsibility to not fragment our approach. Our approach should be more integrated, more cohesive. We adopt the tool and we encourage ethical implementation and usage.
Daniela, go ahead, please.
I think we can tie ourselves in knots if we focus on just one aspect of what actually is dangerous, like data centers and climate change. I use this example a lot, which is why you talked about the three protagonists, the individual, the community, and the institutions really working together to ethically move forward with this tool. Had Steve Jobs gone into the Congo and actually told mothers, listen, we need this cobalt. We will create a system by which we can communicate. You're going to lose your children, but in the mines, but it's not a big deal. We'll pay you. Those mothers would have said no. And we would have been back to the drawing board. So, yeah, right now I'm using an iPhone knowing full well that black bodies again have been sacrificed on the altar of my privilege, of my need. And we are now using computers that require the same thing. But we've learned now to take it from the ocean and not from mothers. So if I concentrate on one crime, I'm going to miss the bigger picture, but I'm not going to ever forget that crime, and I'm not going to repeat it.
And Radiance or Barbara Talley has their hand up. So whichever one is there, please.
Yes, hi. I guess my question is there any ethical way to use AI? Because I'm very conflicted about it. I've been conflicted about it for a long time. On the one hand, I understand what people are saying about how there's no stopping it, and to not understand it, use it is to be behind. But on the other hand, I'm seeing how bad it is for the environment, all the pollution, not just the air pollution, how much of our water it's using, how much energy, and how with this environmental racism, how it's polluting mostly impoverished and Black and brown communities and making them sick and hurting their lifespan. We're already seeing how there are some areas that are already running out of water. And then there's the other component that I'm also hearing about, how they're actually, to create all this AI art, they're actually stealing from other artists, and how that's not, people are saying that's not even legal. And so there's a lot of lawsuits going on about that right now. I know Aisha was created to be a little better for the environment, but some people are saying there is no ethical way to use it. What are your thoughts about it? Because I think it's easy for us to say, like, use it, it'll work itself out, when we're in a place of privilege, or if we're already closer to the end of our life and you're saying, well, I'm not going to see when I'm not going to be alive when all this water runs out, and leave it for the next generation. And we are, like, I am the next generation, so I'm very concerned. I mean, even one of the reasons I'm a vegan is for, like, the environmental benefits, because with all this, the seafood industry is actually, most of the plastic pollution comes from the seafood industry, which is also, and livestock is also polluting the land, the air, the water, and we can't even live with a dead sea. There's a lot of dangerous statistics about what will happen by a certain year, how the earth will no longer be able to sustain us. So, and now with, AI, and they're saying that's also a big drain on the water, the energy, and air. And they're saying it's a lot of theft from artists themselves. And so I'm wondering, is there any ethical way to use it? Or are we just saying, well, we can't be behind, so let's just use it and hope for the best?
Yeah, so most of the question you are raising are pertinent questions, but they didn't come into existence with AI. They've been there already. For example, the exploitation part of it, like in Congo, DRC itself, from 1994 up to now, they killed 12 millions of people. So they can extract cobalt and coltan for free to come and power technology companies in the Silicon Valley and Canada and Europe. So these unethical usage and exploitation of human beings have always been there. In terms of pollution, most of the countries in the West, they rely on uranium to generate power for their industries. Where does uranium come from? It came from Africa. So they pollute in Africa with uranium deposits, which create a lot of devastating effects on the population, health, and so on. So these have always been there before AI. Now the difference is AI have shed light on most of these issues, making them more part of the scope of society, because they are now affecting the Western society as well. But before, it was affecting only African society and Asian society only. So right now, because of the competition, OpenAI, Anthropic, Amazon, they cannot afford having their data centers in Africa or in Asia. because they are competing globally. So all of these data centers need to be local. So because they are local, they have to build the infrastructure locally. Now they have to build their infrastructure locally. They have to pollute locally instead of polluting outside they used to do for all of these years. So it's just shedding more light on the issues that exist already. So should we, now the question we need to ask ourselves, should we adopt a very fragmented approach, or we need to raise ourselves as coherent and protagonists for change? So I believe maybe the right attitude will be the second one. We acknowledge that these are issues we are having. Some of them are linked to lack of good moral judgment, and some of them are linked to the limitation of technology. For example, how do we produce enough power to run all the industries we have while not polluting? So that's a limitation. We haven't reached there yet. We still need to learn more how to use natural energy to power our industries. So there's still more research being done in that area. But how do we deal with the fact that these technologies are being built here is at the expenses of others? Others have been impoverished, others have been killed, so that these companies could get minerals for free or for cheap to build for us these technologies. So those are moral issues. I think the right approach is we adopt the right sides, the positive side of the technology. We use it for good. Like right now, we're on Zoom, we're using it for good. So should we say because Zoom was involved in this, then we should all travel and be together? No, we use it for good. But as individual, we need to be actively advocate for what is right. We need to be actively participating in the discourse of society to raise awareness so that the masses will be more conscious and because the society functions based on the social opinion. If the social opinion is framed in a certain way, the decision-making process will have to follow. So as individual, we need to contribute that discourse so that we can raise awareness, the society can be aware of what is going on, and that will leave no choice to decision makers to start aligning with the aspiration of humanity, that is to build a world that is just for everyone.
Brother Charles, you have your hand up. Please go forward, my brother.
Actually, I probably should just lower it because I think Byron just explained it in so much detail. I was just thinking about how as we go about our lives now with what's in front of us, and he's described the whole AI picture, then it requires a greater depth of consciousness within each one of us to know how to handle the technology and everything that's going to be in front of us. And our country, the rulers of the world, their actions are not based on the spiritual consciousness. It's not. And we have so many causes. And I think some of the statements from the House of Justice talks about it. We have so many causes and good causes, not to say that they're wrong. But if we are continuously running after the causes, then we leave the work of developing consciousness, spiritual consciousness, which is our reality and will be the foundation of what is truth and what should advance for the future. But I just wanted to mention that. And I think Byron has told us exactly how it was, how it is step by step.
Jules, you have your hand up. Please go forward. Jul.
Let's see, where am I? Thank you. Yeah, I guess so much goes into my thinking about all this. But something came to me just now, listening to the speaker just now, that when Shoghi Effendi we talk about moral education and virtues. And he said, I wish I had the quote, but if you took one of the virtues, which we need them all, right? Just delved into it and really wanted to exercise it to the nth degree, fullness, that we would eventually start to encompass each and every one of the virtues in that long old chain. So I think that moral education, and because we are so creative, we're trying to polish our mirrors here so we reflect back the light. And but now the Herculean effort is always present, and I stay up at night thinking about what would my grain of sand help. But yeah, there's big picture thinking, and one of the things that as the virtue of imagination, perhaps, in Scandinavia, they're starting to, I don't know the details yet, use this heat coming off center, putting them underground so that they heat the homes. But, then you still have to think big picture. How is it affecting the soil, the other things? But, just that consultative power we have, and those here that know the Baha'i faith is underscored that need to not only in our individual lives reflect and think about what I did in the day, what could I do tomorrow, but together address these, which we're doing here tonight. And I want to thank you so much, Baron, for this, and all those who came on board to listen and think and comment. Thank you.
You're welcome, Joe.
Okay, Aniela, I see no other hand, but I see yours up, so go right ahead.
One thing that comes to mind for those of us that are here as friends of the faith is that when we're talking about not fragmenting our lives, but actually staying focused, who else out there has dedicated their lives to building relationships in diversity? Who else out there is dedicating their lives to the art of consultation and communication towards the oneness of humankind? And as Jewel pointed out, if one takes one virtue and works on it to its nth degree, all of the other virtues begin to magnetize themselves around that. And so I just want us to leave here, our hope in asking Baron to come was that we would leave less afraid of this new technology, which we will call our tool, and use it to the benefit of the oneness of humankind. Adjust it when it gives something that is unjust back to you. Ask for references, and ask again for references. Ask for references from the House of Justice. We're doing our due diligence in training it in ethics if the others won't. We'll put guardrails on our interaction with AI. Just thinking through all of the buts.
James, I see your hand again. Please, beloved.
Baron, a couple of years ago, beginning my work with AI, I discerned right off that its ultimate purpose for coming into existence is to assist humanity in exploring the depths of Baha'u'llah's ocean. That's its ultimate purpose. And it surprised me when we were exploring the writings that this was over a year or so ago. It said that it seems like the Baha'i faith anticipated the emergence of artificial intelligence. And I do believe that. And I was thinking of Radiance's questions. And when Baha'u'llah said, in my opinion, when Baha'u'llah said the earth is but one country, it's AI that has really united it. We just don't know what to do with it. Like I said, I'd like to kick the can with you, you know. All right, I'm finished, Gary.
You can keep on kicking the can a little bit more if you want to. I just want to comment on what you said about with like exploring the writings. Like I have my books, and I still go to my books and grab my books, and they are just like marked with all kinds of things. And whenever I need to find something else, I'll go back and forth. And what I've used AI for was to make a reference that I can then go tap and explore deeper into the physical book. But it's a great source for me exploring the writings, and it's a gift for me in many ways. And I'll pause there because I see Earl Gasson has his hand up, and then Mary will be after Earl. And you are muted, Earl. Please unmute.
Thank you so much. I'm just thinking where we are on the timeline. We know from the writings that humanity has turned away from God, and things keep going from bad to worse as a result of that. And then you just wonder that this kind of technology being so widely available, and there's people that'll do good with it, but there's also people that'll weaponize it in on many different levels. And I'd like to hear any thoughts about that, and not also just from a personal point of view, not making it a negative. It's just another situation where if bad things happen in the short term because of AI, it'll ultimately be something that awakens people spiritually. But it could be rough going there in the short term.
Brother Barron, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so when I look into the message of the House of Justice from 2023, November 2003, the House is listing what it considers as the forces of destruction that are being activated right now. And among those forces, there is unbridled technology as well. So the usage of AI, the negative usage of AI, correspond exactly to that set of technology described by the House of Justice. So what is interesting is, after enumerating all of those destructive forces, the House reaffirmed that in parallel, we have a process of integration that has been set in motion by the Baha'is. And if we analyze very well the semantic of how the House presented, it means on one side, we have these technologies that are being mishandled. And on the other side, we have Baha'is. We are learning how to make a proper use of it. So as time goes, the confusion will grow because the majority of people have turned away from religion. And when these system being built by the Baha'is will be more visible, and after turning after beating around the bush for years, they don't reach any befitting conclusion on how to handle these new technologies and new artifacts humans are creating. And on the other side, they see something is functioning well in the Baha'i community. They won't have any choice rather than embracing what the Baha'is have been built. So that's why I always advocate for a more a more integrated approach to how we go about using AI. So we understand that this is the tools that we need for this age. That's why God gave us the intelligence to bring them in this world. And at the same time, we as a Baha'i, we have like a laboratory where we are learning how to use them properly and set the foundation for mankind. So to make sure that we are in sync with that vision of the House of Justice, I think we need to understand that one process is disintegrating and the one is integrating, and we need to know how to deal with those two processes to make sure that we're advancing civilization.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary?
Yes, thank you. Aloha, Pa Baron. Wonderful to be with you tonight and to listen to your presentation. I was wondering if you could just talk a bit more deeply about this idea that you presented, and I really found it fascinating that AI stays at the mineral level, that it would never, in a sense, be able to advance. Because I loved the visual hierarchy there and the explanation you gave, and I just wondered how this inspiration, did you use AI to come up with that? No, I'm just kidding. But just how this inspiration kind of came to you. I teach English literature and writing courses, so AI comes up a lot with my students, God bless them. And the mistakes it makes are such that for someone who was formally educated without AI, it's very easy for me to tell. Like a student cited a paper that was written in Spanish, right? Like, so, and they don't have the critical thinking to do the double checking, which is something that I think, like to Aniela's point, that like we're training it, but we also can't rely on the current models of AI even to pull from the right. You can tell it, give me a, because I've done this. I've said, give me a real quote from X, Y, and Z, and it won't. It still won't give you a real quote. So you do have to do that double checking. It's just part of critical thinking that you cannot rely on any of these things to be the end all be all of truth, especially spiritual truth. So Baron, if you don't mind to just speak to a couple of those things.
Thank you, Mary. So the ideas, the fundamental ideas, they don't come from me, they come from Abdul Baha. So if you read the letter of Abdul Baha to Professor Auguste Forel, there's some element from there, and also from the Secret of Divine Civilization, and also from the base of Unity of Mankind. So those three books from Abdul Baha, that's where most of the writings I share came from. And the diagram is just a visual representation of the concept that Abdul Baha presented already. So I just put it in a more simplistic way that anyone can understand the visual. They don't need to, even if they don't understand the text itself. So the idea that AI belongs to the mineral realm and will never reach consciousness comes from those writings of Abdul Baha, because Abdul Baha represents the hierarchy of creation in terms of level of spirit or level of existence. So we have the mineral level, we have the vegetal level, we have the animal level, and we have the human level. Each level has a set of powers that is specific to that level. The lowest level of existence, which is the mineral, has the power of transformation only. That's why all of these minerals, they don't originally or necessarily exist in the form that we have them right now. For example, diamonds, we have diamonds where We have carbon that have been subjected to pressure for a very long period of time, then get transformed into diamond. We have also malachite that get transformed into copper and so on. So the only power that exists at that lower level, according to Abdul Baha, is the power of transformation. And when we build an AI system, we have the algorithms, we have mathematics, we have programming languages, but they cannot function without the underlying infrastructure. So the all processing is happening at the infrastructure itself, and the infrastructure is made only of minerals. So if you look at the microprocessor, which is used for AI, for training AI model, the GPU, which is being manufactured by NVIDIA in the US, is made of titanium, manganese, and copper, and so on. So it's only mineral. And that power of transformation that is inherent to the mineral world is manifesting itself on how the data is being transformed. So we feed it with a data set, and data set can get transformed through that mineral processes, and then it will produce the output that you see as the result. When you say, give me a code from this, is the transformation happening? Transformation is the only thing the only thing that can happen at that level. We take raw data, we transform it into variables, which we call feature engineering, and then we transform it using statistical models to make predictions, and then we provide you the result. So it's only transformation and nothing else, because everything happening in AI is mineral and nothing else. And then when you go to the next level, the animal level, Abdul-Baha says now we have the power of growth. Animals can grow, so the vegetal can grow. We can see when you plant a seed, you can see how it grows. And then it produces fruit and then dies again and grows again, follow that cycle. But in the mineral world, minerals don't grow, they only transform. And then we go the next level, the animal level. We have the power of transformation, we have the power of growth, and we have the power of senses. Animals can sense the smell, they can feel the cold, they can react to light, and so on. So those are the senses we don't find in the mineral, we don't find in the vegetal, we find only in the animal. And then we have the human level, where we have the power of reason for the first time. That power does not exist in the levels below, only in the human level we have that. And based on the explanation of Abdul Baha, the reason why the power of reasons exists only in the human realm is because of the presence of the soul. So from which we can imply that because the mineral does not have that power of reason, because it's limited only to transformation, it means they don't have, it means they cannot reach consciousness, because consciousness is an emanation of the soul. It pre-existed before we were created as humans. So it was there as an attribute of the soul. Is when we step into existence and our physical body is combined with a soul, then we have access to consciousness. And through our volition, we develop that consciousness as we develop ourselves spiritually. So claiming that at some point AI will reach consciousness is not, even mathematically speaking, is not possible because of the gap that exists between those levels of existence. So we cannot jump from mineral to spiritual while not passing through all the intermediate steps. So that's the very essence of what it means when I say that the AI systems are prisoners of the mineral world.
Thank you, my brother. And Again, it feels like a part two is brewing. I'm just saying because we're starting to dive deep into it. But you're way over the time and I know it's later there for you. I'm the type of guy that can stay here all night. That's just how I roll. But Janine, you had your hand up, then you took it down. I'd like to call on you, and if not, and yes, this has been recorded, and once we lock everything in, we'll make it available for people to witness. And after Janine, we're going to close up with Brother James and your question, and then we're going to do a closing prayer. But before the closing prayer, so this is the order. Janine, your question, Brother James, then Brother B.Eng, if you would like to present a summary, and then we'll close out with a prayer. How's that sound, everybody? And thank everyone for participating in this. Janine, you have the floor, beloved.
Well, thank you, Gary, for keeping an eye on me there. I was going to let it go, but I did want to say I just want to express, I'm sure everybody's great appreciation to B.Eng for the wonderful work on this, and I know that I'm planning to do some presentations, very simplified presentations on AI, but the knowledge about this is so scarce that even if you're not an expert, if you at least have some of the facts under your belt, and also what I really appreciate here is how much our friend B.Eng has gone into the really hard questions, whereas I'm kind of sticking to, I'm very impressed. I'm trying to stick to like the more pragmatic questions, like the question of, because we've experienced this on Baha'i forums where people have used AI to compose an argument, and they have let AI cite papers. And I remember when I was on a chat with the fellow moderators of that group, several of whom are actual real scholars, who said, well, let's see, references 1 and 3 don't exist. Things that, Baha'i sounding things that AI has made up. So I'll end up concentrating on pragmatic things like that. But maybe I'll get the courage to touch a little bit on some of the animal-vegetable arguments and so forth. Wonderful arguments. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, dear Janine.
And before we go to James for the final question, I want to make this introduction to B.Eng and Janine because we had a discussion about a Sunday Zoom that she hosts every Sunday, Jackson, Mississippi. So I'm going to make this connection as well, and we'll figure out that presentation on that platform as well. But we just had this discussion on Sunday. So here's your formal introduction to Janine and B.Eng. And Brother James, please, your question, my brother.
I don't know if this matters, B.Eng. You can clear it up. But there's two types of AI. One is the neural network, and the other one's basic. And maybe that's a factor in all these ghost findings. But relative to AI being at the mineral level, actually, to my thinking, it's beneath the mineral. And because if you unplug it, only the minerals are left. The AI is gone. It's gone. There is no existence. Unplug it.
That's correct. That's why I always use the term mind injection. So we are just injecting our mind into the mineral, and once the part is connected, it vanishes.
Beautiful. Aisha, will you read your quote?
I was getting ready to ask Aisha. I saw you put something in the chat, beloved. Would you please share what you put in the chat? And that will be, and then we'll go to Brother B.Eng. Please, Aisha.
The labor-saving machines were given to create leisure for all mankind. Abdu'l-Baha repeated this several times. He was so deeply impressed with this fact that as he spoke, he arose and walked back and forth in the little room, his face and eyes shining with joy over the happy future into which he gazed. The first decided shortening of the hours will appear, he declared, when a legal working day of 8 hours is established. And this, of course, took place in 1917 when Woodrow Wilson enacted the legal day of 8 hours for all federal workers, and really for the workers of the United States. But this working day of 8 hours is only the beginning, went on Abdu'l-Baha. Soon there will be a 6-hour day, a 5-hour day, a 3-hour day, even less than that, and the workers must be paid more for this management of machines than he ever received for the exercise of his two hands alone.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, beloved.
Where's that from, Aisha?
I'll put this in the chat for you, one of the Baha'i libraries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, beloved. And with that, Brother Barron, I would like for you to have, if there's something you would like to say before we say our bid our dues and close with a prayer, please. And thank you, Aniela, again for putting this together and hosting and having this call for this after being with the brother there at ABS. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. If you asked a question, if you just listen, just participating on serried lines as we learn more about AI. So with that, I'll pass it on to you, Brother Barron.
Thank you. Before concluding, I wanted to highlight one concern that was raised by Radiance. I think it's a very good concern worth addressing. As she mentioned something related to the fact that AI is trained using creative work from other people, but they don't benefit from it. Is that right, Regis?
Yes.
So yeah, so this is an active research problem. Myself, I'm also working on this research. So we are trying to figure out how we can embed trustability into the training process of AI, because right now we just have a lot of public knowledge on which we train AI, but we cannot account for how much knowledge from each individual is being used to produce a certain result. So when we go in AI system, we say, draw for me a painting for a sunset, for example. So we've trained already the model on thousands of paintings already from different artists. So the results it provides you at the end, we don't know yet how much knowledge came from artist A, B, C, D, and so on, so that we can understand how to put in place a very robust economic system where every creative worker will be rewarded for their work being used to train AI models. So these are the limitations. There is a lot of research that's being done right now to be able to track the amount of knowledge that contributes to the outputs of any prompt you give to the AI, to an AI application, such as ChatGPT or Copilot. So I'm sure in the next, maybe in the next 5 years, we'll start seeing some early implementation of this technology, and it will be a game changer because it will open doors to a very brand new and expensive economic system where creative as artists will be able to benefit more from their work than in the former economic model that they have to sell physically their product. So this is an interesting field of research we are working on. And to conclude, what I'll say is all of these challenges raised by AI, it will be very good if we could consider them as catalysts of the current plan we are currently working on. So as the House of Justice says, for the next, 25 years, the main focus of the Baha'i community will be to learn how to release the power of community building. Now, that equation was very simple when we didn't have AI. Now, as we have AI as part of the variables of that equation, so it gets a bit more complex. So because AI is changing the community the definition of community is getting changed by AI itself. Like recently, I've been asked to teach at university at master's level. And when they gave me the plan, the roadmap for the course teaching, and the evaluation was online. And then I thought to myself, if this evaluation has to happen in a classical way, we'll fail to really evaluate the student, because with one prompt, the student can get everything they want for the evaluation. They will pass with 100% mark. So for me, that's a challenge. It means maybe the current education system is not adequate anymore. We need to rethink how we define education, how we define evaluation of learning. So in the Baha'i community, we've made already a lot of progress, like through the institute, the Rui Institute, where the education process is capacity based rather than memorization of facts and restituting them during the test. So when you go to your institute, we are actually, the only way of evaluating is if you're able to start a core activity after you finish book 3. If you're able to start a devotional when you finish book 1. If you're able to do home visits when you finish book 2. Or if you're able to engage in a teaching campaign when you finish book 6. Or if you are capable of starting a new study cycle if you finish book 7. So we are having already a very consistent way of addressing the need of this time, but outside the Baha'i community, we don't have yet any model that could challenge the unbridled nature of AI, because students can use AI to do anything. So if you have to follow the classical model of evaluating student learning process, then AI will always defeat it. So that's a challenge we need to think of. And as Baha'is, as we are learning to release the power of community building process, then these questions will be arising more and more in every aspect of the community lives. So I'm very happy that they are coming just at the time when we've been asked to start building, raising vibrant community, learning how to release the power of community building, so that we can be challenged enough, so that we can adjust the way we function and build a more sustainable community life model that will be useful to the larger community in any area of endeavor, whether economic or social or academic or any area of endeavor, because we are positioned already into delivering of that. So I think that all of these challenges that have been discussed during this presentation should be a motivation for us to learn more and more how to release the power of community building that will be a solution to those problems.
God bless.
Again,
God bless.
again, beloved, thank you for everything. Just so much. I can't wait to just keep rewinding the recording. Again, so proficient, and just again the connection with the time and what we've been charged to do from the Universal House of Justice. How you just umbrella everything, that it's still this faith, this thread of this faith. And so thank you again, how you just, your expertise, but your foundation is this faith. So thank you, beloved, for all that you do. Thank you.
God
Thank you,
uses
Baron.
everything for the betterment of humanity. God uses everything for the betterment of humanity.
Yes.
And here was a different lens. God bless you, Baron.
Yes.
Gary June.
Yes. So I will
close
offer,
us out with a song.
yes. Okay. I will offer this prayer with a half of a afterwards, but this prayer just kept raising in my heart as he was presenting. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God the all-glorious, God the all-glorious, God the all-glorious. He is God, exalted is he, the light of might and grandeur. O God, my God, I yield thee thanks at all times and render thee praise under all conditions. In prosperity, all praise is thine, O Lord of the worlds, and in its absence, all gratitude is thine, O desire of them that have recognized thee. In adversity, all honor is thine, O adored one of all who are in heaven and on earth. And in affliction, all glory is thine, O enchanter of the hearts of those who yearn after thee. In hardship, all praise is thine, O thou the goal of them that seek after thee. And in comfort, all thanksgiving is thine, O thou whose remembrance is treasured in the hearts of those who are nigh unto thee. In wealth, all splendor is thine, O Lord of them that are devoted to thee. And in poverty, all command is thine, O thou the hope of them that acknowledge thy unity. In joy, all glory is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. And in sorrow, all beauty is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. In hunger, all justice is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. In satiety, all grace is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. In my homeland, all bounty is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. And in exile, all decree is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. Under the sword, all munificence is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. And in the safety of home, all perfection is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. In the lofty mansion, all generosity is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. And upon the lowliest dust, all favor is thine, O thou besides whom there is none other God. In prison, all fidelity is thine, O thou the bestower of gifts. And in confinement, all eternity is thine, O thou who art the ever-abiding King. All bounty is thine, O thou who art the Lord of bounty, and the sovereign of bounty, and the King of bounty. I bear witness that thou art to be praised in thy doings, O thou source of bounty, and to be obeyed in thy behest, O thou ocean of bounty. He whom all bounty doth proceed, he to whom all bounty doth return. Baha'u'llah. Fill our cups, Lord. We lift them up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting in our souls. Bread from heaven, feed us till we want no more. Fill our cups, fill them up, and make us whole. Fill our cups, Lord. We lift them up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting in our souls. Bread from heaven, feed us till we want no more. Fill our cups, fill them up, and make us whole. Fill our cups, fill them up, and make us whole. Fill our cups, fill them up, and make us whole. Ya Baha'u'llah.
Amen, brother. Amen. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
God bless you each. Thank you for being here. And dear Baron, just thank you. 1,000 million
من با
thank
تشکیلین برم خیلی جا رو مرتب کردم
داره میاد مثلا در دیوار نگاه میکنه همه چی
Everybody, we can